I came across a great quote recently from Abraham Lincoln, who I thought you'd be pleased to have quoted at this point. He said this in December 1862 to the second annual meeting of Congress. I ought to explain that I have no idea what was happening at the time. We don't teach American history in Britain. We suppress it. You know, this is our policy, so... So no doubt something fascinating was happening in December 1862, which the Americans among us will be aware of. But he said this: the dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion. I love that. Not rise to it, rise with it. As our case is new, so we must think anew and act anew. We must disenthrall ourselves, and then we shall save our country. I love that word, disenthrall. You know what he means? That there are ideas that all of us are enthralled to, which we simply take for granted as the natural order of things, the way things are. And many of our ideas have been formed not to meet the circumstances of this century, but to cope with the circumstances of previous centuries. But our minds are still hypnotized by them, and we have to disenthrall ourselves of some of them. The second principle that drives human life and flourishing is curiosity. If you can light the spark of curiosity in a child, they will learn without any further assistance very often. Children are natural learners. It's a real achievement to put that particular ability out or to stifle it. Curiosity is the kind of engine of achievement. Now, the reason I say this is because one of the effects of the current culture here, if I can say so, has been to deprofessionalize teachers. There is no system in the world or any school in the country that's better than its teachers. Teachers are the lifeblood of the success of schools. But teaching is a creative profession. Teaching properly conceived is not a delivery system. You know, you're not there just to pass on received information. But what great teachers also do is mentor, stimulate, provoke, engage. You see, in the end, education is about learning. If there's no learning going on, there's no education going on. And people can spend an awful lot of time discussing education without ever discussing learning. The whole point of education is to get people to learn. The role of a teacher is to facilitate learning. That's it. And part of the problem is, I think, that the culture of the dominant culture of education has come to focus on not teaching and learning, but testing. Now, testing is important. Standardized tests have a place, but they should not be the dominant culture of education. So in place of curiosity, what we have is a culture of compliance. Children and teachers are encouraged to follow kind of routine algorithms rather than to excite that power of imagination and curiosity.
One of the people I've got to know really well is a wonderful guy called Bart Connor. He was, I think, 8. He discovered that he could walk on his hands as easily as he could walk on his feet. Now, we don't know how he discovered this, but he did. And then he discovered that he could go up and down stairs on his hands as well, as easily as on his feet. If he were here now, he'd do it for you. Well, nobody thought much about this, although it was, you know, he was in demand socially. I mean, so he didn't think much about it, but his mother did. His mother spoke to the school and said that she thought Bart would benefit from going to the local gymnasium. The school agreed, so she took him down there. And Bart said he will never forget the feeling he had when he walked into that gymnasium. He said it kind of took my breath away. He said it was like Santa's house in Disneyland in one place. There were wall bars, there were trampolines, there were trapezes, ropes. He said it was intoxicating. Now, is that how you feel when you walk into a gymnasium? Is it? Do you find it intoxicating? And looking round, not all of you, I feel. No. I'm just saying. You see, I don't, I'll be honest with you. I do not find it intoxicating to go to a gymnasium. On the contrary, I need to get intoxicated if I am within 50 yards of a gymnasium. Anyway, he loved it, and he went every day, or as often as he could. And 10 years later, he walked onto the mat at the Montreal Olympics, representing the United States in the male gymnastics squad. He went on to be the most decorated male gymnast in American history. He's married to Nadia Comaneci, first perfect 10 in women's gymnastics. They have a wonderful little boy called Dylan, after Bob Dylan. They have their own gymnastics center, and he and Nadia are leading members of the world's Special Olympics movement. So between them, they've helped to liberate the gymnastic capabilities of thousands and thousands of athletes with special needs. None of that would have happened if his mother hadn't encouraged him. Isn't that right? You know, she could have said, when Bart was 8, Bart, will you stop it with the hands thing? you know, we're over it. We get it, now knock it off, and focus on your homework. But she didn't. She encouraged him. But by the way, we do that a lot in our public institutions, and especially as the curriculum in schools gets narrower and more standardized, and we exclude options, we increasingly are saying to our kids or to other people, stop it with the hands thing.
The truth, I think, is that human intelligence isn't marked by conformity, naturally. It's characterized by diversity. And it happens, therefore, that if you have a system of education that's based on a narrow view of ability, on a conformist view of ability, people who don't fit that mold will think they are the problem. What do we do about all this? Well, the problem, I think, is this, that our current systems of education were not intended to deal with this kind of challenge. They were designed to do something else. And they're based on 3 principles which contradict the conditions under which human beings have always flourished and which we need to observe if we're to flourish in future. The first is this, that education is based on the idea of conformity. I mean that embedded in the system of education, the selection procedures, the examination procedures, the curriculum, the structure of the curriculum, there is a conception of intelligence which has dominated our view of talent. We have, for a long time now, in the West, conflated a certain type of academic ability with intelligence in general. There's much more to human intelligence than that. In fact, the greater part of human intelligence is richer and goes beyond the rather strict confines of academic work. And yet, you have to be good at academic work to do well at all. The truth, I think, is that human intelligence isn't marked by conformity, naturally. It's characterized by diversity. And it happens, therefore, that if you have a system of education that's based on a narrow view of ability, on a conformist view of ability, people who don't fit that mold will think they are the problem and will naturally feel that they are eccentric. You know, I mean, if you've got an average of 20% of kids not completing high school, you can't blame the kids at this point, can you? This is the system that's at fault. The evidence everywhere is if you refresh your conception of intelligence so it corresponds to how people really manifest it, then all kinds of people who are excluded become included, empowered, and engaged in a way they didn't before. The second is that the current system is based on compliance, which is what the testing movement is all about, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry. The NFL was a $9 billion sector in terms of income generated. US cinema domestic box office was an $11.2 billion industry. The education testing and support industry was a $16 billion industry. Can you imagine what we could do to improve universities, colleges, schools, early years education with an extra $16 billion a year? And by the way, this whole testing industry has contributed nothing to the improvement of standards, nothing at all to empower teachers, nothing at all to engage students, nothing to remediate the non-graduation rate, nothing. The whole thing's been a calamitous failure. And actually what drives human achievement is collaboration. It's the opposite, it's collaboration. Systems ought to be celebrating diversity, creativity, and collaboration, and they kind of penalize all 3 of those. This was a picture that was taken in the Indian state of Bihar. This is an image which shocked the people of Bihar, including the political class as well. The point is that this image was taken outside that building. That building is the venue for an important end-of-program examination for high school students, and the results will determine whether they go on to the next phase of education. So they're in there doing a standardized test. The people clinging to the building are their parents, who are handing cheat sheets in through the window. to make sure they have the best opportunity to pass the test. What you can't see are the people on the ground, the other parents, who are milling around waiting for their chance to get onto the wall. I'm not being openly critical of that because that's the game they're in. But it's an appalling game to be in, isn't it? You have all these people with brilliant capacities and it's all being turned on a particular test. Now, the reason I don't think we should get too smug about Bihar is we're doing exactly the same thing here, except it's horizontal. Our kids are being pumped through these systems in Europe, in Asia, in many parts of America, and our parents here, and they are figuratively also being driven up the wall. The problem is this, that our current systems of education were never designed or intended to cultivate the great array of individual talent. On the contrary, they were conceived with a very particular view of intelligence in mind, a cultural conception of intelligence, and a very particular sense of economic purpose in mind. There is something in the system of education which hinges on the expectation of higher education. The whole system of K-12 education in America is now predicated on the ambition of going to college. I think this is a very corrupting influence on the whole character of education. The idea that you're not educated unless you get a college degree. It'll only really be solved by rethinking what higher education is about and how best it can offer the sorts of skills and aptitudes that people need. The truth, I think, is that human intelligence isn't marked by conformity, naturally. It's characterized by diversity. And it happens, therefore, that if you have a system of education that's based on a narrow view of ability, on a conformist view of ability, people who don't fit that mold will think they are the problem and will naturally feel that they are eccentric. And so we end up inventing remedial programs for people who just aren't interested in the main diet that's offered at school. We have a dropout rate, I don't like the term dropout truthfully, but a non-graduation rate in America from high schools that varies, according to state, between 15 and 40% of non-graduation rates. You know, I mean, if you've got an average of 20% of kids not completing high school, you can't blame the kids at this point, can you? This is the system that's at fault. The evidence everywhere is if you refresh your conception of intelligence so it corresponds to how people really manifest it, then all kinds of people who are excluded become included, empowered, and engaged in a way they didn't before.